66 million years ago, the very ground beneath our feet was part of a completely different world. The skies were filled with incredibly large winged creatures, and the oceans churned with life forms we can barely imagine today. And on land, right in the middle of all that chaos, lived the most heavily armored creature in the history of this planet. It feared no predator, no threat, because millions of years of evolution had given it the most resilient armor the world had ever seen. This creature's name was Ankylosaurus. And today, we're going to talk about everything you never knew about it. Ankylosaurus could reach up to 8 to 9 meters in length and weigh between 6 to 8 tons. To put that into perspective, it was heavier than most modern elephants and longer than a crocodile. Ankylosaurus was a creature of that scale. But it wasn't just big. Every single centimeter of its body was designed with a purpose. Its wide, low frame was built to carry the immense weight of its armor. Its legs were short, but incredibly powerful. This creature didn't exist to run away. It existed to stand its ground and crush whatever stood before it. This wasn't the kind of creature that would sneak up on you. You would feel the ground trembling before you ever saw it. And the moment you heard that sound, the only thing you could do was back away. Scientists are still amazed by how efficiently an animal this large could move. Because despite its weight, Ankylosaurus had a remarkably balanced and controlled build. Nature didn't just make it big, it made it functionally perfect. What set Ankylosaurus apart from every other dinosaur was, without question, its armor. Its entire back was covered in thick, bony plates called osteoderms. These plates were embedded directly into its skin, meaning this armor wasn't something added on. It was part of its body. Skin and bone had essentially merged together, forming a single, complete defense system. On top of these plates were sharp spikes and raised knobs. So when a predator tried to attack, it wasn't just met with a hard surface. It was met with a surface that could cut and wound. The act of attacking became dangerous for the attacker itself. When scientists examined these bony plates, they discovered something remarkable. The structures were so dense and durable that they could be preserved as fossils in near-perfect condition even millions of years later. Think about that. 66 million years had passed, and the armor was still intact. Nature had thought of everything when it came to protecting this animal. But we haven't even gotten to the most striking part yet, because this armor wasn't limited to its back. What we've covered so far was already impressive. But when it came to Ankylosaurus, evolution truly pushed the boundaries. Because this armor wasn't limited to its back, its shoulders, or its neck. When scientists examined the fossils, they discovered something fascinating. Ankylosaurus even had bony plates, acting as shields over its eyelids. Think about that for a moment. For most armored animals, the eyes are the most vulnerable point, a perfect target for any predator. But Ankylosaurus had eliminated even that weakness. These additional bony structures over its eyes provided it with near-complete protection. From head to tail, top to bottom, every single point of its body had been accounted for. Carrying such an extensive armor required an incredible amount of energy, meaning Ankylosaurus didn't just develop this armor, it also developed a body powerful enough to carry and use it. Evolution had been perfecting it continuously, piece by piece. And this tells us something very important. Ankylosaurus didn't develop by chance. The threats it faced over millions of years were what shaped it into what it became. Every new plate, Every new spike, every new layer of bone was the result of a lesson learned. The armor that nature gave it was the product of millions of years of battle and survival. Up until now, we've talked about how Ankylosaurus defended itself. But this species wasn't just equipped to defend when the moment called for it, it was equipped to attack as well. And that offensive power came from the massive, bony club at the end of its tail. This club was no ordinary structure. It was made up of solid masses of bone fused together, and it was extraordinarily heavy. When scientists examined the structure of this club, they noticed something striking. It wasn't designed to absorb impact, it was designed to deliver it. So how powerful was it? Biomechanical research shows that a single swing could generate enough force to shatter the leg bone of a large predator. And here's the most fascinating part: this club may not have only been used against predators. Researchers identified marks on some Ankylosaurus fossils that appeared to have been caused by impacts from their own kind, meaning these creatures may have used this weapon among themselves as well. Defense, offense, and competition all combined into a single source. When you first look at Ankylosaurus, perhaps the first thing that catches your eye is how short its legs were. Why hadn't it developed longer, more powerful legs? The answer is actually remarkably straightforward and just as clever. Ankylosaurus wasn't designed for speed, it was designed for stability. Its short, wide legs kept its body as close to the ground as possible. This stance gave it incredible balance. And that balance was one of its most critical defense mechanisms. Because while its back was covered in armor, its belly was far more vulnerable. If a predator could flip it over, all of that magnificent armor would mean nothing. But Ankylosaurus's low, wide stance made that nearly impossible. Its center of gravity was so close to the ground that an enormous amount of force would have been needed to tip it over. So those short legs were not a weakness. On the contrary, they were a solid solution produced by millions of years of evolution. Ankylosaurus didn't need to run because it didn't need to run from anything. Despite all that armor, all that weaponry, and all that power, Ankylosaurus was a herbivore. Using its wide, flat beak, it fed on low-growing plants, ferns, and shrubs close to the ground. When you first hear that, it might come as a surprise, a creature this well-equipped, and it only ate plants. But that's exactly what makes it so remarkable. Ankylosaurus didn't develop these weapons to hunt, it developed them to survive. It wasn't chasing anyone. It wasn't hunting anyone down. It simply stood its ground in its own territory. And whoever dared to enter that territory had to face the consequences. Scientists discovered that Ankylosaurus had an equally fascinating digestive system. To fuel a body this large, it needed a highly developed digestive system. Its intestines were incredibly long in order to extract maximum efficiency from the plants it consumed. The most dangerous creature is not always the most aggressive one. Sometimes it's simply the one that has proven itself untouchable. Ankylosaurus was exactly that: quiet, calm, but absolutely unstoppable. Ankylosaurus's armor wasn't limited to its body. Its skull was equally and extraordinarily reinforced. Compared to the skull of an ordinary dinosaur, the difference was immediately obvious. Ankylosaurus's skull was layered with extra bone, almost as if it had been woven together. These additional bony structures didn't just provide protection from the outside. There were extra layers of bone on the roof of its mouth as well, meaning even the inside of its mouth was armored. And despite having a small brain, that small brain sat inside a protective casing wrapped in layer after layer of bone. So why had evolution gone this far? Because the head is always the primary target for a predator. And Ankylosaurus had eliminated that target entirely. Every attack aimed at its head put the attacker's own teeth and jaw at serious risk. In short, the head of Ankylosaurus was not a vulnerable point, it was a trap. And every predator that fell into that trap paid a heavy price. Ankylosaurus didn't live in a world of its own. The era it inhabited was one of the most aggressive and dangerous ecosystems the world had ever seen. And at the top of that ecosystem, the most fearsome predators in history ruled the land. Think about it every single day. It came face to face with massive predators in the same territories, the same wetlands, the same forests. And yet, Ankylosaurus survived, surrounded by all of these predators every day for millions of years. This was no coincidence. It was proof of one of the most effective defense systems evolution had ever produced. No matter how powerful a predator was, attacking Ankylosaurus always carried enormous risk. And in nature, taking unnecessary risks means the end of your life. Which is why many predators most likely chose to simply walk past Ankylosaurus in silence. The most surprising part of Ankylosaurus's story perhaps begins right here. For millions of years, it had stood against everything. It had fought off the most dangerous predators. It possessed the most perfect armor evolution had ever produced. But 66 million years ago, everything came to an end. And what caused it was neither a predator nor any other living creature. A meteorite approximately 12 kilometers in diameter struck the Earth. The energy released by that impact was thousands of times greater than all the nuclear weapons humanity has ever produced. The sky was blanketed with ash and dust. Sunlight couldn't reach the surface for weeks, then months. Its armor could protect it from teeth and claws, but it couldn't withstand hunger. One of the most resilient creatures the world had ever seen was never defeated by any threat that came its way. What wiped it out wasn't an enemy standing before, it was the world itself. If you've watched this video all the way to the end, you can now see that Ankylosaurus was never just a dinosaur. It was a miracle crafted by millions of years of evolution. It was never defeated by any predator, never surrendered to any threat. The only thing that could destroy it was the world itself. If this video moved you, don't forget to like and leave a comment. And if dinosaurs, extinct giant creatures, and the lost history of our world fascinate you, don't forget to subscribe, because this was only the beginning.